The financial secretary says the city may have to revise downward its GDP growth forecast again next month. 6 more elderly COVID patients die as the city reports 3,970 new local infections. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Financial Secretary Paul Chan said the city may have to revise downward its annual economic growth estimate again next month. If so, that would be the second downward adjustment in 3 months. Sharon Tang reports.
The government originally forecast the economy would grow by 2 to 3.5% this year. But after a 4% contraction was recorded in the first quarter, the government revised downward its forecast to 1 to 2% in May. Speaking to SCMP, the finance chief noted it's likely the authorities will have to slightly revise downward the figures again in mid-August. Paul Chan noted while consumption has improved, exports and investments remained sluggish. Chan added that high inflation had also seriously affected the U.S. and European economies. He said the most serious challenge facing the city is how to strengthen cross-border travel with the mainland and the other parts of the world. Chan said that's why the administration is adopting an evidence-based and precise approach, hoping to relax some of the isolation rules for inbound travelers. An economist expects Hong Kong's GDP growth this year to slow down to 0.2%. Kelvin Lau, senior economist of Greater China at Standard Chartered, said the risks of having a technical recession in the U.S. may increase and the pace of interest rate hikes and inflation would grow faster than imagined. He added that even if the fifth wave is gradually easing, time is needed for the city's economy to pick up its momentum.
The city reported more than 3,970 new local COVID cases and around 300 imported infections. As 6 more elderly COVID patients died, authorities are urging infected people to seek medical help as soon as possible, even when these symptoms are mild, to prevent complications. Jackie Lin reports.
Hong Kong reported more than 4,000 new COVID cases for the 6th consecutive day. Among the 6 COVID-related fatalities, 4 of them are hospital patients with chronic illnesses. The other 2 patients include an unvaccinated elderly woman who had a history of stroke, dementia, and heart disease. The 84-year-old passed out at home last Monday and was certified dead at the A&E department on the same day. She tested COVID positive posthumously. The other one was an 88-year-old woman with no chronic illnesses. She developed respiratory symptoms on July 11th and tested COVID positive the day after. She was prescribed antiviral oral drugs at designated COVID clinics. Still, she lost consciousness on the street 5 days later and died after being sent to hospital. With a rise in people dying from the virus at home, authorities are urging COVID patients to seek medical attention even when the symptoms are mild, especially the elderly.
The elderly, so we urge them not to overlook their symptoms because most of the time they are asymptomatic. But as just mentioned, their situation or their condition can deteriorate quite rapidly.
Authorities added more antiviral oral drugs will be prescribed to prevent severe complications among COVID patients. With 1,000-strong caseloads every day, the Penny's Bay Isolation Facility also set a new high for admissions since June. Around 5,200 people are undergoing quarantine at the center, which is 60% full. Following a slew of complaints about the facility's arrangements for providing daily necessities, the authorities admitted under the current centralized mechanism, it took more time for staff to cater to the needs of the quarantined individuals across the 1 million square foot facility.
The government is very concerned and is closely monitoring the pandemic situation, and we are also reviewing our community isolation facilities.
The facility has now adopted a new zoned management system under which each team of staff will take care of 60 to 80 rooms at Penny's Bay. There will also be 3,000 units in other community isolation facilities ready for use once the need arises. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Starting yesterday, inbound travelers at the airport can choose to take designated taxis to quarantine hotels. Some participating cabbies lament the daily subsidy of $1,500 is far from enough. On the first day of the scheme, each participating taxi only had 2.5 rides on average. The Hong Kong Taxi and Public Light Bus Association says around 1/5 of the cabbies already wanted to quit. But other industry representatives said the scheme was unfair as the government only opened the scheme to one association, leaving other cabbies excluded. Sources say the government is expecting to finalize the Color Health Code scheme next month. Authorities are also planning to shorten the hotel quarantine period for those arriving in the city to 5 days, allowing them to complete the remaining days of quarantine at home. Timothy Lee has more.
In recent days, the government has gradually taken steps to ease the process for those flying into Hong Kong, including the launch of designated quarantine hotel taxis, digitization of the mandatory health declaration form, and the introduction of an express channel for airport rail passengers. Furthermore, it is thought authorities will upgrade the current Leave Home Safe app next month with the addition of the mainland-style color code system. The government earlier announced that the red and yellow codes are given to those infected and quarantine arrivals, respectively. The color identification will then ban them from certain activities in the city. As for the 7-day hotel quarantine period, preliminary data indicates quarantine hotel PCR tests taken on the 3rd day after arrival effectively identified infections. While sources point to the government leaning towards the option of decreasing the hotel quarantine period to 5 days. Meanwhile, Legislative Council member Yu Pak Leung of the Tourism Functional Constituency believes the new measures will increase the public's appetite for travel. He added that as the government is still desperate for more quarantine hotel rooms, a shorter hotel quarantine period will free up much needed space. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The mainland reported 868 coronavirus cases. Companies, including Foxconn and BYD Company, will reportedly set up a closed-loop system starting Sunday, as requested by Shenzhen authorities. To curb the spreading pandemic situation in Shenzhen, Chinese media Yicai reported that the city has told its 100 major companies, including Foxconn, to set up closed-loop systems. Under the plan, the building for manufacturing will be closed for 7 days, with staff to work from home and continue with daily COVID testing. Meanwhile, BYD said it has stepped up pandemic control efforts, adding, operations have not been affected. Guangxi registered the most cases, with 402 reported, while over 340 cases were found in Gansu. Still ahead after the break, Pope Francis apologizes for evil against Indigenous people in Canada. Zimbabwe launches gold coins as legal tender to stem inflation. And locally, vegetables successfully cultivated with hydroponic technology. Welcome back to TVB News. Pope Francis delivered an apology for the Catholic Church's cooperation with Canada's catastrophic policy of Indigenous residential schools. Francis spoke near the site of a former Indigenous residential school located on the lands of 4 Native Canadian Cree nations to the south of Edmonton. The pontiff said the forced assimilation of Native people into Christian society destroyed their cultures. That's in addition to splitting up families and marginalizing generations in ways still being felt today. The Pope said he humbly begs for forgiveness for the evil committed by so many Christians against the Indigenous people. Francis's week-long penitential pilgrimage to Canada aims to put the Church on a path of reconciliation with Indigenous people and help victims recover from their trauma. Some residential school survivors welcomed the Pope's apology. U.S. President Joe Biden says it is in his expectation to speak to President Xi Jinping this week. He made the remark after participating in a virtual meeting yesterday to talk about computer chip manufacturing. He also slammed his predecessor Donald Trump for his inaction during the January 6th insurrection. This report from NBC News.
President Biden tonight on the back end of his bout with COVID.
I'm feeling good. My voice is still raspy. I've had every morning, every afternoon, every evening I get a full-blown series of tests.
His doctor writing that his symptoms have almost completely resolved. The president saying he hopes to return to work in person by the end of this week. It comes as his predecessor, former President Trump, is set to return to Washington tomorrow for the first time since he left the White House. Today, a member of the January 6th committee releasing new evidence showing Mr. Trump resisted some of the sharpest criticism in a draft of the remarks he was to give the day after the attack, including crossing out lines calling for the rioters to be prosecuted.
Do you recognize the handwriting?
It looks like my father's handwriting.
The committee says Mr. Trump deleted a key graph that read, "I am directing the Department of Justice to ensure all lawbreakers are prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We must send a clear message, not with mercy, but with justice. Legal consequences must be swift and firm."
Do you know why he wanted that crossed out?
I don't know.
Mr. Trump did still criticize the rioters in his speech.
"And to those who broke the law, you will pay."
President Biden tonight in a speech to black law enforcement executives, slamming Mr. Trump's inaction on January 6th.
The police were heroes that day. Donald Trump lacked the courage to act. You can't be pro-insurrection and pro-cop.
Zimbabwe has launched gold coins as legal tender in a bid to stem inflation and to try and boost confidence in the local currency. The move was announced by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, which distributed 2,000 coins initially to commercial banks. The coins have an initial price of $1,823 US, or the Zimbabwe dollar equivalent of 805,745. The coins can be used in shops, depending on whether the shop has enough change. Trust in the Zimbabwe dollar is almost non-existent after people saw their savings wiped out by hyperinflation in 2008. Back here at home, the 7-day Hong Kong book fair ended today. A number of booksellers noted that the number of visitors this year is higher than the previous year, but even left much to be desired in terms of sales. However, one genre of literature became especially popular in 2022. Books on fortune-telling and tarot cards were sold at a rapid pace. Exhibitors at the fair noted that many people in Hong Kong have become increasingly uncertain about their future. Some booksellers in the more remote corners of the fair said they saw a 50% decrease in sales compared with last year. Several of them decided to close up shop before noon. The Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department has introduced crops successfully cultivated with controlled environment hydroponic technology. The three products are watercress, purple Napa cabbage, and edible marigolds. Using hydroponic technology, meaning growing crops using water, they can grow throughout the year and not be affected by the weather. People can purchase the products from vegetable marketing organizations, but because the method of producing costs more, the vegetables will also be priced higher than usual. For example, 1 kilogram of watercress will cost $80. And that is the news. Thanks for watching. Bye.